Welcome to IT and Digital Resources in Teaching Foreign Languages, lecture number 23, Podcasts for Learning English. Outline for today's lecture. The first question, the top 5 podcasts for learning English. And the second question, podcasts for students at the intermediate level. Podcasts are rapidly becoming more and more popular among English learners. The reasons are obvious. It's like the next best thing to watching your favorite TV shows or listening to music all day. They are conversational, educational, and most importantly, you can just listen to them on the go and not miss a thing. Podcasts allow you to become very familiar with the rhyme of the English sentences. Hearing English conversations with podcasts will help you when you come to speak English yourself, even if you are only half paying attention. Six effective strategies to learn English using podcasts. Start with podcasts that focus on learning. There are probably more podcasts in English than in any other language, and some of them are truly great entertainment. With so many great English language podcasts available, it can be tempting to jump straight into listening to ones created for English speakers. This might be a good strategy if you are already an advanced learner. If you aren't ready yet, then this will be a very ineffective way to learn. If you get lost, you will probably stop paying attention and then you will not be taking in any new vocabulary. There are some excellent free podcasts designed for English language students. Listen with the text accompaniment. Many of the best podcasts designed for studying English come with a written version which can also be downloaded. Try reading along to a podcast and you will be learning how to read and pronounce at the same time. It is very difficult to tell how English words are pronounced just by seeing them written down. In fact, this is one of the most frustrating things about learning English. Reading along to a podcast is an easy way to get used to the strange English pronunciation rules that we all battle against. It's also great to make sure you don't miss anything important. Make a note of new vocabulary. Podcasts are an excellent way to gain new vocabulary in subjects you are interested in. But these new words aren't going to stick unless you engage with them. Simply write down any new words you hear. If you aren't sure what they mean, pause the audio and look them up. Since you have already heard these words in context and made an effort to absorb them, you are likely to remember them. Slow it down. Native speakers talk so quickly. Everyone learning a second language has been frustrated by this at some point. Another useful feature of podcasts is that they can be played at slower speeds. Even if you only miss a word every few sentences, experiment with listening to your podcast slowed down. This will give you time to write down any new words you hear. You might also gain a better understanding of how each word is being pronounced. Take advantage of the option to pause and rewind any sections that confuse you too. Don't multitask. Normally, the beauty of podcasts is that they don't require your full attention. However, if you are using them as study tools, it's probably best to forget that. If you want to get the most out of the language learning podcast, you have to be fully focused. This means doing something with the information you are hearing. That might be reading alone or just making a note of unfamiliar words. Put them on in the background. To get the absolute most out of podcasts as an educational tool, you should give them your full attention. If you are just using them to gain more contact with spoken English, however, you can ignore the advice from time to time. Having a podcast playing in the background will help you get familiar with the sounds and rhymes of the language. For the best results, try listening to a podcast once with full concentration and then playing it in the background a second time to reinforce the new vocabulary. Now let's speak about different podcasts, and the first is All Ears English. It is going to appeal to probably any learner. It is not your classical educational podcast. Rather, it focuses on things like informal conversation, small talk, and conversation starters through a particular expression, idiom, or phrasal verb. The fact that it's been downloaded well over 50 million times speaks to its popularity. Episodes are typically 10 or 15 minutes long and feature two speakers, teachers Lindsay McCowan and Michelle Kaplan. In a nutshell, the two help learners of almost all levels improve their English vocabulary and conversational skills, as well as things like preparing for the IELTS exam, professional interviews, meeting, and presentations. It's basically a one-stop shop for students, professionals, and everybody in between. The second is A Voice of America Learning English. This podcast is actually a library of other VOA podcast series that altogether provide a beautiful learning experience for learners of different level and of different interests. Topics in the different series range from culture and history, world news, tech and entertainment, as well as the English language in general. They are usually narrated at a slower pace than normal to facilitate better learning. My recommendation is, of course, the Learning English broadcast. However, it is intended mostly for elementary level learners. It is why it slows the narration down even more compared to all the other VOA series, using only a limited amount of vocabulary and a rather short sentence structure in the conversations provided. They provide a great basis for elementary learners to grasp new vocabulary, particular items, and master native-like pronunciation. The third one is British Council Learn English. Created by the world's leading educational organization, British Council's Learn English podcast series is surely not going to disappoint. The currently available 4 series feature around 63 episodes that focus on everyday topics and are narrated by native English speakers. The current content is best suitable for beginner, pre-intermediate, and intermediate learners. Unlike some other English learning podcasts, the episodes reach up to 25 minutes in length. However, they are structured in a way that follows the general guidelines of an English lesson. What we want to emphasize the most is the fact that each episode is accompanied by several interactive exercises to help learners practice the language they hear. The tasks are fairly easy to do and consist of true or false questions, fill in the blanks, and word order tasks, as well as answering questions that related to the lesson. What is more, all lesson materials are downloadable in PDF format. The next is English Class 101. Whereas most podcasts are free up until the point you want premium content. Innovative Language English Class 101 offers a free lifetime account for all users. Talk about a burden. The weekly releases incorporate culture and current issues to create fun, interesting and culturally relevant lessons that are easy to listen to. The topics range from advanced grammar and vocabulary all the way to talking about monsters and toys, hence providing content for learners of literally any level. They can experience real lessons from real teachers. Every episode is highly informative and is part of a stacked library of audio and video lessons, each of which is followed by detailed PDF notes for better revision. What is more, the native speakers hosting the podcast are very energetic, which makes the listening experience all the more enjoyable. As the cherry on top, the mobile app enables learners to easily listen to new content on the go on any device. BBC World Service Podcast. Probably the most all-encompassing podcast library for English learners is provided by the British Broadcasting Corporation (BBC). Each podcast series is well thought out by English language experts who put most focus on phrases, slang, and everyday situations. New episodes are published on a weekly basis in a very light format that is only a few minutes long. Typically, there are two speakers involved in a conversation which unlimitedly revolves around a particular phrase or knowing what to say in a particular scenario. Podcast for students at the intermediate level. Real English conversations. Get exposed to natural English conversations that you can use to practice your English listening and quickly learn common vocabulary used in everyday communication. Each conversation is about 12-15 minutes long about a large variety of different topics. The hosts, Amy and Curtis, are originally from Canada and they speak with a clear American English accent without slowing down or changing the way they speak normally. There are currently 41 conversation lessons available that include a transcription, text to help you understand the audio perfectly, plus speaking and listening practice exercises. ECL Pod, English Cafe Podcast. This English podcast has an extensive list of episodes that feature a short scripted dialogue and a transcript. Each episode has a slow version and a normal speed version. In each script, they use English expressions and speak about different subjects to try to expose the learner to new vocabulary. There is an option to subscribe as a paid member to receive access to more practice exercises, vocabulary explanations, and other features. American English pronunciation. As the title says, this podcast focuses on English pronunciation. Each episode has a transcription on the website so you can see how each word is spelled as they explain the rules and sound differences. We liked how they use groups of words that produce the same sound. This podcast has an extensive list of audio for you to master English pronunciation by listening and repeating. They offer a membership upgrade which gives you access to more features from their website related to pronunciation. The English Phrasal Verb Podcast. This podcast focuses on learning English phrasal verbs in context with audio examples. In each lesson, you will hear a new phrasal verb and the meaning will be explained. What is really cool about these lessons is that each example uses the phrasal verb and then the example is repeated using an alternative to the phrasal verb. This will help clarify the meaning if you are still confused. These lessons are part of the phrasal verb course, which includes stories using 10 phrasal verbs from the lessons in context. This can be helpful to teach you how to understand the phrasal verbs that have multiple meanings. Happy English Podcast. The Happy English podcast explains a bit of everything. They discuss grammar, expressions, pronunciation, and general uses of English in real-life situations. Each podcast episode features a dialogue that uses the topic being discussed. You will hear a slow version of the conversation and later a normal speed version. The host, Michael, does a good job of providing lots of examples so the listeners can understand easily. There are transcriptions available for purchase on the website if you need more help. Better at English. Better at English podcasts have unscripted conversations, often as interviews with other native English speakers. Lori, the host, speaks very clear American English, and the audio quality is very good in each of the episodes. The podcasts are positive and motivational while you are listening to them. Dynamic English podcast. This English podcast is good for testing your listening comprehension. It includes a few easy-to-answer questions based on a conversation dialogue. Dynamic English podcast hasn't had any recent episodes, but there are 36 audio tracks you can listen to and study. The conversations are basic and spoken slowly and clearly with an American English accent. Now let's sum up. Podcasts make the most of time that would otherwise go to waste. That's why everyone loves them. It's also the main reason they are so great for learning a second language. They are a great way to increase your contact with the language without much effort. Think of them like English learning blog posts, but for your ears. No matter what stage of the learning process you are at, it is helpful to get as much exposure to spoken English as possible. Podcasts allow you to tune into the language anytime and anywhere, while you're out for a walk or driving your car. Questions for discussion after our lecture. Name the 3 best podcasts for learning English. What is a podcast? And describe a podcast for students at the intermediate level. You can see the list of references that you can use after our lectures and practical lessons. Thank you for your attention.